Hey, it's Joel McDonald with Just Get Out of Town, and I've got my good friend Howard Jacobson on online with me. Howard, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hello, everyone. I think I'm Howie to you, aren't I?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
are.
Oh, I'm Howie to you. I'm Howie to all your friends.
All right. So, yeah, so Howie is a friend. He's actually co-author of our book that we wrote together. Just Get Out of, or Google AdWords for Dummies, and so Howie gave me a call and was asking me questions about points stuff, and had the brilliant idea of saying, well, let's share this conversation online because this is a similar question that a lot of subscribers have when it comes to collecting and redeeming points. So Howie, you want to just kind of give everyone a background of the question you were asking about?
Yeah. So I have this Capital One business card, or just a credit card that I use for my business, and I never think to check. And so my daughter was at Best Buy looking to get an iPad Pro for her burgeoning um, graphic design business, and she doesn't have a lot of money. And so she was saying, hey, like, I remember when I was 14, you bought me a computer with points. Do you think we could do that now? So I went online and checked, like, oh, 81,000 points. That seems like a lot. And like how all the different ways I could redeem it. So I could just get it, credited back to my account as a credit, or get a check in the mail. That looked
And
like
that
it
would
would
be
be,
about $800.
well, it was actually like 400 or something. It was like
Okay.
half. Then there was, shop for travel. And then, like, I'm used to, shopping for travel in a very specific way, like Orbitz or hotels.com or Hipmunk. And so this was like this whole new ecosystem of shopping for travel that scared me a little bit, but I imagine the redemption values are pretty good because they're getting kickbacks. Then there was like exchange with travel partners, and there was a whole bunch like JetBlue and Finland Air and things where like 1,000 points was like 500, or 1,000 Capital One miles was like 500 or 750, Lufthansa or Alaska Air or whatever miles. And then there was like gift cards, and there's a zillion gift cards, or there was just like shop on Amazon with points. And I clicked on that, but I couldn't find any information about exchange rates. So the question is, what's the smartest thing to do?
So, of those four categories you listed, three of them are going to be about the same. A Best Buy credit, a cash back, or the fourth, putting it towards Amazon. Those are all basically like gift cards. And so Capital One, they say it's 2% cash back, but then as you can see, it gets devalued. So it's really the equivalent of just 1% cash back. So all of those are going to be $400 or $500 in value, which is great. That it feels like free money, and it's $400 or $500 you don't have to spend, which might be nice sometimes when you're looking at a luxury item that you might not have been looking at spending. However, the one thing that is different when it comes to Capital One points, or just about any other travel credit card that you accrue frequent flyer miles with, is transferring to transfer partners. And just like you saw, you could shop, and so the first thing was you could have shopped for flights on the Capital One website, but if you do it that way, it's the same as cash back. You're going to probably get about $500, $400 or $500 in value by shopping directly on the Capital One shopping portal.
Okay.
I'm guessing if you poked around, that's probably what you would have seen. However, the third of the four categories that you mentioned is extremely different and extremely powerful, and that's transfer partners. And it's basically every different airline has a different currency in terms of what they will charge for a flight. So if you have 80,000 points, with anyone else, that would be a minimum of $800 in value and a maximum of $8,000 or $10,000 in value.
Now I'm listening.
So that's where, like, everything else, yeah, sure, you can get about a half a penny per point because it's Capital One. If it were any other travel card, you get about a penny per point. But when you deal with transfer partners, you can multiply the value of those points exponentially. So that's where I always say, no matter what, if you're getting a penny or less by redeeming those points, don't do it. Spend cash instead. Whether it's a flight or a gift card or free money on Amazon, it's kind of like being given a free pair of shoes gift card at a department store. If it's a free pair of shoes and it's any pair of shoes, are you going to go and waste it on a pair of running shoes, or are you going to get yourself some $2,000 Jimmy shoes?
Well,
Jimmy
I would
shoes.
just get the running shoes, but
Well, I would recommend that you get the $2,000 Jimmy Choos, sell them on eBay, and then get 20 pair of running shoes.
gotcha.
So that's kind of what turning it into a transfer partner versus just redeeming it for a gift card or cash back or whatever.
Okay, great. Because there was one more thing that I forgot to mention, was that when I went to the Capital One Travel, they have my travel information, and they saw that there were 2 travel purchases that I'd made in the last month, and they said, "Do you want to pay for these?" And that was going to be like a penny a point equivalent. So,
yeah. So, well, and if it's truly a penny per point, then that's as much as $800 in value, which could be great. However, just last month, we used 50,000 points, 53,000 to be exact, on Singapore Air, which happens to be a transfer partner of Capital One. And we took a flight of a lifetime and flew in a private suite on Singapore Air.
I saw those pictures.
Yeah. And it cost us like $50 and 53,000 points. So you have 80,000 points, and you're debating whether, you're wondering, it seems tempting to buy a $500 iPad, but by switching for transfer partners, it's possible to get a lot more. Now, you might only get the same value if you're lazy about how you go and find those points redemptions. But if you like geeking out like me and looking for the best value, you can find $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 redemptions by transferring to transfer partners, because they don't treat it the same. They just say, well, this flight is 50,000 points, and it can be a $5,000, $12,000 flight. We've done the same on United. So Air Canada is another transfer partner of Capital One. You lose about 30%. I think it's a 1 to 5 to 2 transfer ratio. So every 3 points you transfer, they'll give you 2 back.
Okay.
But Air Canada, we transferred to Air Canada and then booked a first class flight to Beijing for 70,000 points. And that was an $8,500 flight. So I just gave you 2 examples where you could transfer to transfer partners of Capital One and get 10 to 20 cents on the dollar.
Okay. So if we were writing transfer partners from Capital One for dummies, and we had to make one of those damn lists, would I first go to one of the airline websites, search for flights, and then how do I find out what their point values for flights? Because when I search, I just see dollar signs.
Right. So there's a great website called Award Hacker, and that's always the first place I start. In fact, after you called me, I cheated and went on Award Hacker and went to find a few examples of places I could go. And so I found out that instead of cashing out your 80,000 points, you could buy 2 flights on Singapore Air for 35,000 points each to Hawaii. Now that's from the East Coast, that's a $1,500 flight. So there's a 3,000 point redemption.
I got to go right now.
So again, and I think you could do this. The beauty of doing it that way is if you were to write down a list of steps to take. Step 1, look at how many points you have. Step two, go to Award Hacker and type in a few places that you are dreaming of going, and see how many points that you can go with. Now, with the exception of Capital One, Award Hacker will tell you, oh yeah, you can get there on Chase points, or you can get there on Amex points, or Citi points. You have to do a little reading between the lines for Capital One because they don't have very many transfer partners.
Mm-hmm.
But Air Canada is one, and we've booked $8,000 flights with less points than what you have. Singapore is another. We've booked $12,000 flights with less points than what you have. So is it going to fall in your lap? No, you have to do a little homework. You have to go and find them. But to get 10 times the value versus the free iPad, I would recommend pay cash for the iPad and save those points for some huge, awesome redemption of something that you might not pay for, or you don't want to pay for. You know, another example is last minute weddings or funerals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or you called me last year about a tournament. You didn't want to pay $600 or $700 for the flight because it was at a very specific time, so you used points.
Right. Gotcha. Awesome. All right, now I'm excited to go look.
All right. Well,
yeah.
I hope that helped. Yeah,
that helped,
I mean,
that helped a ton. I see you have 13 viewers. Very impressive for going live on short notice.
Yeah.
You have a loyal following. I wonder any comments, any questions on. I hope this was helpful for folks. Certainly was for me.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions right now, they can pop them in there. We'll see about answering them. But all in all, I think as a general rule, I refuse to redeem points for less than about 2 cents per point. As a general rule, no one should ever redeem for less than 1 cent per point, because you can almost always do better by, with just a little bit of work, you can do a little to a lot better by redeeming for an expensive flight that you wouldn't normally want to pay cash for.
Cool, gotcha. So can I ask my second question that came up since we planned this?
Sure.
I was talking with my daughter about the iPad thing, and then she mentioned, oh, her boyfriend just took a week off from work and wants to go away, but they just got together. They're just living together now, so they're keeping their funds separate. And she doesn't want to spend the money that he found some, sort of cheapish flights to the Bahamas, and now they're going to have to, stay in some seedy Airbnb or grotto or something because she doesn't have enough funds to really enjoy herself. And then I thought, oh, Jgoot. So what, their requirements are like 5 days away, warm and sunny.
Okay.
So it sounded like a perfect algorithm for success on Jgoot. What would you tell them to do?
So it's funny that you mentioned the Bahamas, because my wife and her girlfriends planned a girls' trip, and they just go and plan it, and they say, let's go to the Bahamas. And I'm just sitting there gritting my teeth because they've painted themselves into a corner. And so they're looking at a specific time, specific place. It's going to be expensive. The biggest thing about our philosophy, whether you're a subscriber of ours or not, is go where the deal is. Everyone has all-inclusive, or everyone in Mexico and the Caribbean, they all have all-inclusive resorts with free drinks and free food and white sand beaches and all of that. So rather than painting yourself into a corner by saying, let's go to the Bahamas, and then finding out that it's really expensive because they recently had a hurricane, and you can just basically say, where can we go in Mexico or the Caribbean where we can fly there for a couple $100 and also stay for a reasonable price as well. So our philosophy is always to just find the cheap flight first. You can almost always find somewhere else that is going to be half the price of the place that you thought of off the top of your head. And then once you do that, you find $200 flights instead of $700 flights. You bundle that with a hotel, and you've got an extra $1,000 to spend because you didn't waste it on a flight going to a specific place that you could find just as well anywhere else.
Gotcha.
And
so
then
that's
once you find that cheap flight, that's the best time to bundle that with a hotel. So you find the $200 flight to the Caribbean, and then you go and you click over on the packages. So you get the $200 flight. They give massive discounts on hotels, whether you paid $200 for the flight or $1,000 for the flight. It's the same algorithm. So then you go get a cheap hotel too.
On JGoot?
I'm sorry?
You do all this on JGoot. Click over to packages on JGoot, or at that point, are you on some aggregator site?
Whether you're a free subscriber or a paid subscriber, you get the same deals. The difference is free subscribers or paid subscribers get 10 times as many as free subscribers. But you can look at all the same details. So once we send you a trip alert, you can click on the flight alone. You can also see what it costs to bundle that flight with a hotel and poke around however you like. But again, our website is built on the premise that you look for the deal and go there versus painting yourself into a corner with a specific destination and usually paying 3 to 5 times as much.
Gotcha. So go to JGoot, find a deal, buy the cheap flight. And now this is completely separate from points, right? Like I wouldn't use points. Because now I'm buying Converse All-Star with my free.
Right. So this is a very good complement to the conversation we just had, because points are what you save for those really expensive flights that you wouldn't want to pay cash for. All of the trips that we send you are flights that are so cheap you would be crazy to use points on. It's the same thing. If you have 80,000 points, you can get 2 flights to the Bahamas. But if we send you a $200 flight, you would be better off spending $200 to go to the Bahamas and then saving that 80,000 points for your $12,000 suite.
Right. And then giving you 147 a year for 10 times the deals.
Sorry, say that again?
Giving you 147 a year for 10 times the deals.
Right. Yeah. So that all you're paying us for is to find the deals. We're not taking a commission. We're not we're not marking up the trips at all. We're paid to find deals that are going to be so good that you wouldn't waste points on them.
Right.
Hey, have you got a few more minutes? I see a few questions.
Yeah, go for it. I just want to say, I love, this is going to be inside baseball for most people, but I love how you're doing exactly the same thing as you did when we were working on AdWords together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I was having a conversation with some friends about business, and they said, what are you doing? You're so good at this business analysis stuff. What are you doing in this travel industry? And to me, it's the airline algorithm is easier to beat than the Google algorithm.
Well, there's a lot fewer people trying.
Right. Well, let's see. Jill says, thanks. I have lots of capital points. Looks like I'm going on a good vacation. Yeah. Transfer partners are the way to go, Jill. Marco, thanks for the video. And Jill, I live near Salt Lake City. Is it better to see deals in a bigger city, Las Vegas or LA? Jill, I'm going to guess that's a JGoot question and not a points one. And yeah, especially in Salt Lake, most people in Salt Lake are used to commuting to bigger airports. So you can always kind of watch Denver flights and Vegas flights, even LA flights. Those are all called positioning flights. So what a lot of hardcore travelers will do is if they really, really like Asia, they will watch flights out of their hometown, but they will also watch flights out of the West Coast. So they'll watch LA, San Francisco, and Seattle, because you can find really, really cheap flights to Asia from the West Coast. And then they can position, and then they just figure they can find a cheap flight to get themselves to one of those cities if they need to, if the price is good enough. Same goes for Europe on the East Coast. Yeah, Jill, that's a very good question. If you are a JGoot subscriber, you can just reply to any email, and we will add additional territories to watch for you if you like. Well, I think that makes for a good short video on both points as well as JGoot fares. So, Howie, thanks for calling.
Hey, thank you for answering. It's always a pleasure to see your smiling, bearded face.
You too. Have a good one.
See ya.